Here we're going to take a look at enveloping. I have a cylinder here and multiple types of objects. I have a null, a skeleton chain, an implicit sphere and a cube. Anything can be used to envelope, otherwise known as skinning. Selecting the object, envelope, set envelope. Now within the construction modes, envelope will normally be applied as an animation operator because you're normally going to animate the underneath objects to drive the skin. If you're going to use it just for deforming to create shapes or something like that, you don't need to put it in the animation, but I recommend you do it always. So it now asks me for the things I want to select. I can select them one by one. Like so. I can then start to play around. Now I have all of the objects which I've done. If I ever need to get the objects back again, I have to select them all again. It's really recommended for, particularly for things like the character setup. You're always going to use the same objects. So I'm going to select all my objects here. I don't want the root or the effector. So null, bone, 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 cube, sphere. I'm just going to create a group and just call it envelope. Doesn't matter what it's called, it's just easy for me to recognize. If I just freeze my object, I'm removing the envelope. Envelope, set envelope. Yes, I want to be an animation. Click on the envelope group and it knows exactly what I want without all the extra bits. Right click and now it's enveloped. The first thing that comes up is the number of skeleton objects. If I were to start moving, say, the skeleton here, you'll notice that nothing is updating because currently I'm in the modeling mode. What I need to be able to do is to not only switch to the animation mode, but I need to make sure that if I'm in my display settings that I'm syncing with the current mode, or I'm in the very top mode. It's very useful to be able to switch these off if I go back to my modeling mode, to have individual areas in the views identify different stages, so I can still very easily select parts of my objects or character here whilst seeing it update over here. Each vertex has now been assigned to the two closest objects. If I put it down to 1, you'll notice how much it changes. So that vertex here is assigned to the nearest deformer. Well, the nearest deformer in this case is the sphere. That's why I only have 1. If I go up to 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 is often a good average because it's now going to look at this object, this bone and this bone and average that weight across all of those deformers. You'll also notice that the deformers don't have to be inside the object. Although I'm moving them, I can still do things like scale as well, and you notice what's happening here. I'm going to switch just to animation mode and just show you more easily like so. And I have a null here. I'm working on distance based, i.e. the distance from the point is looking at the objects, in this case the 3 closest objects, deforming it, or deformers. We also have the normal based. Now the normal based is very much similar to the distance, but it adds the surface normal as a director. So it's very useful for things like fingers, where when you envelope it won't use the next finger over and the bone there to help deform it. But you must have all deformers, such as this cube here, inside before you apply the envelope, inside the total surface of the skin, otherwise it won't work properly. The envelope operator is a cluster on the object. If I look at my cylinder, open up its construction history here, you notice the envelope operator lives under animation, and in fact I've done two envelope operations. The first one I deleted, or I froze my object, but it remembered the cluster. I don't need that one anymore. I'm just going to switch to animatable parameters here. So this cluster, as you can see when I select it, selects my entire object. The reason we work with clusters is because I can actually envelope to just selected vertices in this case. So if I were to re-envelope this, set envelope, and maybe I just want it to be these two bones here, there we go, I now have another cluster with the envelope weights there. It's going to undo that. So the envelope weights is what we saw to begin with when we first enveloped, it popped up, and the automatic envelope assignment is a property of the envelope weights. You'll notice up here the envelope operator, this is where I can mute the envelope. Anytime you mute something, you'll also see the little M next to it here. You'll notice if I select my object and I try to move it, it doesn't allow me. And that's because it's bound to these objects and being deformed by these objects. If I were to mute the operator or delete this operator, you notice it now jumps to where I tried to move it to, because the operator is no longer forcing it to be deformed in this area here.